Hi everyone. Today, I'm sharing a deeply unsettling experience from my past that still sends shivers down my spine. Imagine this: you're a young student, full of hope, trying to build a future, but you're haunted by things you can't explain. This is my story, the story of how my medical school years turned into a series of encounters that I still struggle to comprehend. Let's dive right in. Back when I was studying to become a doctor, I lived in different rented apartments, each with its own eerie tale to tell. My first apartment was tucked away at the end of a long row of rooms. My roommate and I were the only ones living there, yet almost every night, I heard the unmistakable sounds of children playing, laughing, running, their tiny footsteps echoing across the empty yard. There were no children around. Not a single one lived in that block. Yet the sound of their laughter would fill the air, especially late at night when I was working on patient files, forcing me to stay up longer than I ever wanted. One night, as I was typing away, I heard the laughter again. Did you hear that? I asked my roommate, my fingers pausing over the keyboard. She looked up, her face puzzled. Hear what? The kids, laughing. It sounds like they're right outside. She frowned and shook her head. I didn't hear anything. Maybe you're just tired. I forced a smile, trying to convince myself she was right. Yeah, maybe. And then it got worse. I started developing strange symptoms, fevers that would only come during the evening, with no explanation from the doctors. It wasn't until our landlord decided to burn away the thick bushes behind the building that we made a gruesome discovery. Hidden beneath the overgrowth were the tiny graves of several children. A chill ran through me at the sight, and suddenly, everything made sense. Did you know about this? I asked the landlord, my voice shaky as I stared at the small graves. He nodded solemnly. This place has a history. I thought it was best not to mention it. My roommate gasped. No wonder we've been hearing things, she whispered, her face pale. But I was close to graduation, and I had no choice but to stay. I convinced myself I could endure it. I tried to keep my mind occupied, but the unease never really went away. Every creak in the floorboards, every whisper of wind outside the window had me on edge. Nights grew longer, and the air in the room always felt heavy, as if we weren't alone. After graduating, I moved to another city for a month of intense exam preparation. This time, I rented a small apartment near the Hung Loi Bridge. It was late when I first moved in, and I didn't bother with any housewarming rituals or offerings. That first night, my mom called me and reminded me to pray to the spirits of the house. You should light some incense and ask for their blessing, she said over the phone. I sighed. Mom, I'm too tired for that right now. I'll do it tomorrow. Don't put it off, she insisted. It's important. I shrugged it off, too exhausted to care. I fell asleep almost immediately, but it wasn't peaceful. I dreamt that the door to my room opened on its own. I woke up with a start, only to find the door still shut. Convinced it was just my imagination, I went back to sleep. But again, I dreamed the door opened, and this time, there was a figure. A young girl, no older than 20, stood there with short hair, dressed in a plain white blouse and black pants. I couldn't see her face clearly, but she was there. And then I woke up, drenched in sweat, the door still closed, the room deathly quiet. The following nights were no better. I began to suffer from intense stomach pains at exactly 1 a.m., pain so excruciating that I had to wake my roommate and rush to the hospital. Hey, wake up. I shook her shoulder, my voice trembling. I can't take this pain anymore. We need to go. She sat up, eyes wide with concern. Okay, let's go. But every time I arrived, the pain would vanish without a trace. I finally confided in my roommate, asking if she had seen or felt anything strange. Do you think this place is haunted? I asked her one evening, my voice barely a whisper. She looked at me, her expression serious. I haven't seen anything, but I feel like we're not alone here. The next day, our neighbor knocked on our door. Did you two perform any rituals when you moved in? She asked, her eyes darting around nervously. I shook my head. No, we didn't. Why? She hesitated before saying, I saw something in your room last night. Some movement. It made me uneasy. You should do something about it. That was enough for me. The very next morning, I set up an offering, begging for peace. I lit incense, placed fruits and flowers, and whispered a quiet prayer. I asked for permission to stay, to not be disturbed, to be allowed to live peacefully. For a moment, the room felt lighter, and I hoped it would be enough. You'd think I'd learn my lesson after that, but life had other plans. My third and final rented apartment was just as chilling. It was 2018, and I had returned to Kondo to continue my studies. This time, I was careful. I moved into a place near the bus station, and I immediately set up offerings, praying to any spirits that might be dwelling there. For the first week, things were calm, but soon, the familiar restlessness returned. I found myself unable to sleep, plagued by a growing sense of unease. One night, I was lying in bed, drifting in and out of sleep, when I saw him, a man stepping out of the bathroom, his shadow moving slowly across the room. Night after night, he would walk the same path, never approaching me, but always lingering, watching. "Did you see him again?" my friend asked one morning, noticing the dark circles under my eyes. I nodded, my voice barely audible. "He just stands there, watching." "You need to protect yourself," she said, handing me a necklace from a Thai temple. "This might help." I began to wear protective amulets, a necklace from a Thai temple and a string of prayer beads from my visit to a pagoda. They seemed to work, keeping him at bay, but the fear never left me. I tried to stay strong, but every creak of the floor or flicker of the lights would send my heart racing. I kept the lights on at night, the glow from the bulbs giving me a false sense of security. It all came to a head when my apartment flooded after a heavy rain. I took it as a sign and moved out, sharing a new room with a friend from my hometown. I didn't tell her about the man. She was terrified of ghosts, and I didn't want to add to her fears. But the first night we shared that room, she woke up in a panic, claiming she'd felt something pressing down on her, stopping her from moving or breathing. "Che oi," she cried, shaking me awake. Something was on top of me. I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe. I knew then that the shadow had followed me. It had attached itself to me, refusing to let go. I spent many nights in fear, praying, offering, and trying to find peace. Eventually, I graduated and started working in a hospital. The ghost stories didn't end there. They only became a part of my daily life. Hospitals are full of restless spirits, and working late nights, I encountered more than my fair share. Patients would tell me about figures they'd seen in their rooms, and I would listen, nodding, knowing that what they saw was very real. One night, during a late shift, my colleague nudged me. "Did you hear that? Someone's calling your name." I sighed, used to the eerie occurrences by now. "Just ignore it. They like to mess with us." Another time, as I was walking through one of the empty wards, I heard footsteps behind me. They were soft at first, almost imperceptible, but then they grew louder, more distinct. I turned around, expecting to see a fellow nurse or a patient, but there was no one there. The hallway stretched out, empty and silent, the fluorescent lights flickering above. "Are you okay?" one of the night nurses asked when she saw my face, pale and shaken. I nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah, just hearing things again." But somehow, with each new encounter, I found myself growing less afraid. I learned to coexist with them, to respect their presence without fear. I knew they were there, and they knew I could sense them. It became an unspoken understanding. If I left them alone, they would do the same. Sometimes, I'd hear my name whispered when I was alone in a room, or see a shadow pass by in the corner of my vision. It was unnerving, but I refused to let it control me. I had a job to do, patients who needed me, and I couldn't let fear get in the way. One of the most chilling encounters happened during a particularly quiet night shift. I was in the pediatric ward, checking on a sleeping child, when I felt a cold breeze pass by. The windows were closed, and there was no draft. I turned, and for a split second I saw her, the same young girl from my dreams, standing at the end of the hallway, her eyes empty and hollow. She stared at me, and then just as quickly as she appeared, she was gone. My heart pounded in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. I walked back to the nurse's station, my hands trembling as I picked up a cup of tea. One of my colleagues noticed and asked if I was okay. "Just a little spooked," I admitted, trying to laugh it off. "Yeah, this place can get pretty creepy at night," she said, nodding in understanding. That's my story. A series of haunted encounters that turned my student years into something out of a horror movie. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to my channel. I have many more tales to share, some thrilling, some chilling, and others simply beyond explanation. Thanks for joining me today, and I can't wait to share my next story with you all. Stay safe, and remember, respect the spirits around you. You never know who's watching. Bye for now.